I was reading one of the suttas recently, and it's from the Digha Nikaya, which is the long discourses of the Buddha, and it's got quite a mix of different things in there. But some of what's in there is kind of, you could call it like cosmology and mythology. That's part of the sort of Buddhist context, and which you could say is just like, maybe it's just stories, or it might be, who knows what it is. But anyway, there's this one teaching that's about it's called origin, and where the Buddha's sort of telling these stories of the origins of things, and he uses this term world contractions and world expansions, that the world goes through periods of expansion and periods of contraction. And I've always appreciated that from when I first heard it, actually, because even if we look at what we know already of history, we can say that that's happened, at least 5 times already, and here we are maybe in the 6th. And that's a natural process. And there's this one little sort of scenario, which I don't know, it just landed really well for me, where he's speaking about, after the world goes through an expansion, and then for a very long time, and then after a very long time it starts to contract, and then that contraction happens, and that can last for a very long time. That could be, you could think of that as like the Ice Age, or or it lasts for a very long time, and then many people die during that time. And so he's saying, so then many beings are reborn in the Abhasara realm. So this is one of the realms, the heavenly realms. And the Abhasara realm is the realm of radiant gods, radiant celestial beings. So the gods of limitless radiance, something like that. So then many beings, they can't live here anymore. So they get reborn in this beautiful realm, which is just, everything's really lovely and radiant and beautiful, and then you're there for a very long time, and then that comes to an end, like all things do, and then they come to a bit of a lower realm, but it's still just very pleasant. Everything's, actually it's dark. They move into a realm where everything's dark, but it's very peaceful. There's nothing going on. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just sort of a dark space, and there's no form as such. So consciousness has not taken form, and then then it moves into a different state where there's lots and lots of water. So there's mostly water, very little earth, and so sort of minds are dwelling in this sort of watery place. And then at some point, a kind of a crust starts to appear on the water, on the surface of the water, and it starts to grow, and then one of these beings, which are not formed as we are, wonders like, I wonder what it tastes like, and so it has a little nibble of this crust that's growing, and it's really delicious. So then it has more, and then it tells its friends about it. Like, have you tried this crust? It's delicious. And so then they all start nibbling away at this kind of crusty stuff that tastes really lovely. And then the more they eat of it, the more coarse they get. So the more solid, the more physical, the more embodied they get. The more so from sort of maybe just states of mind, they move into. They start to develop forms, differential forms, and then the more they eat of that, the more this happens. And then at some point that starts to run out. But then these mushrooms appear that taste kind of similar, and they're really delicious. So they're like, "Hey, have you tried the mushrooms?" And so they're eating these funguses, and as they do this, they get more and more into a sort of like a physical body like us, and then and at first there's no gender, there's no sex, there's no intercourse or anything like that. And then gradually they get more into like duality and male and female, and then the whole sort of what we know as our bodies start to form, and then they live in the world gets more solid and more real, and then they get they get into this more like ordinary life like we have, and then at some point somebody says, I want to keep this for myself. This is mine. And so they determine an area and they say, this is my area and you can't have that. And then somebody else is like, well, if you're going to do that, then I'm going to do that. And so then people start to stake out their areas. This is mine. This is, you can't come in, and not unless I tell you. And so then they start to take possession of things, of land and of trees and maybe lakes, and start to own things. And then, of course, some people may be quicker to do that than others. So some people end up without any, or with like not a very good bit. And then someone comes in and is like, well, I'm going to take yours. It's not yours anyway. I'm going to take that. And so somebody comes in and takes the property of another, and then fighting begins. And then that just, well, we kind of know the trajectory, I think. And, the more there's this sense of greed and ownership and possession, and then there's, the haves and the have-nots, then it starts to set up this discord among people, among beings. And so people start, it starts with ownership, and then people start stealing, and then they start fighting, and then killing and lying, and all of this stuff, and the whole thing gets more and more devolved. It goes down, it gets less and less inspiring, and more lost. And it began with that delicious crust, like, that's nice. And the first response to that, when those beings tried it, was like, hey, come and have this. I was wanting to share it. But then at some point it turns, and it gets all about, what can I have for myself? I want more, I want better, I want, and there's no end to that, really. Because the peacefulness and the joy that is being sought was what was there before we started nibbling on that stuff. So, and because of confused thinking, we keep looking for something. If I could just control that thing or that person, or if I could just have that thing that I want, or if I could just have that area that could be mine, that I can do whatever I want with, then I would have peace. But that isn't the source of peace. The source of peace is somewhere else. It's deeper. It's not. Even though it definitely makes a difference to one's life. If you have very, very difficult conditions, if it's really hard to just get by, which it is for many, many people, then it's much tougher to survive. But it can be that there's. It depends where you are. But it can be that when the material stuff is very limited, there can be a strong relational connection with people. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just very, very hard for many people. And it's definitely true that having enough to eat and a roof over the head and enough like medicines when you need it, and clothing and so on, to have what you need, it brings a certain sense of like rest in the nervous system. But somehow we've got to thinking that it's that something out there that's going to make us complete. And so, and I think America is a really classic kind of culture for that. And people have been able to do it for a while, have what we want, and not have to deal with the trash, let's just send it to another country. It's fine, you know. And yeah, so we've lived that way in this country for a few generations, maybe not super long, but a few generations, and now people are still trying to do that actually, but it's starting to fall apart. And you know, the warring and the othering, you know, the harm that's being done is huge. It's huge at this time. It's just distressing, you know. Once we start to look at it, it's like, oh my goodness. And also the United States' involvement, particularly things that we're doing, it's hard. And there's a certain, and it's, you know, it's, you could, I mean, I want to say it's wrong, morally wrong. I'd say it's morally wrong. That feels really true. To be warmongering and taking life, yeah. And there's a certain sort of inevitability to that trajectory that we're in, that maybe this is just the direction we've been going for a long time. And maybe it has to, you know, just as the Buddha says, we've been in an expansions time and then we're going into this contraction time, and that's probably not over yet. And in the midst of all of that, all of this, as I say, I think I say it every week, but I just have to say it, how we take care of our heart and mind really matters. What we do with in our relationships, in how we, you know, relate to each other, to, you know, our neighbours, our country, our planet Earth, our neighbouring countries, our whole Earth, you know, every living being on it, it matters. It matters. So I feel these 4 qualities of the Brahmaviharas are really, really helpful guidelines, because they're looking at reality from these 4 different perspectives that are all loving perspectives. One is kindness and friendliness, one is compassion, and not the compassion that's broken by the suffering of the world, but a compassion that understands why we're in the mess we're in, why people do what they do, because they can't see clearly. We do it ourselves, all of us. We've all got a bit of it in us, or maybe we have in the past. And then the appreciative joy that doesn't just get pulled down into the suffering of everything, but sees the beauty, the brightness, the brilliance, the creativity, the possibility that's here, that's in any, you can find it anywhere, in any culture. And there may be some individuals who are so lost, you know, that it's hard to find in them. It can be true. And there are some individuals who are so have forgotten their own potential. You know, good people even who've forgotten their own potential. So that they're so not living from that it can be hard to see. But we all have it as part of our true nature. The creativity, the brilliance, the kindness, the clarity, the wisdom. These are aspects of true nature, our true nature. So appreciative joy for that which is good and beautiful, and also the equanimity, the upekkha. And I feel this quality of upekkha is a very important quality to be able to experience. Its near enemy, as they say, is indifference. So it's not indifference. it's this quality of, I see, oh yeah, that makes sense. And the ways I access it are, I find, like, to look over a very large span of time is one way, and just to see what happens in history. Empires, arise and become immensely powerful and then fall apart. That's happened countless times. And you can see it in human history. You can see it in nature. Species are continuously coming into being and disappearing, not just because of us. It happens even without human beings' influence. Species come into being and then either thrive for a period of time, it could be a long time, or try it out for a while, it's not really working, and something else takes over. This is nature, and also environmentally, the ways that even the earth crust itself, the changes that it goes through. It's a constant process of change, and that's how it is. So seeing things over a really long time scale can be really helpful, and gives us a reality check. And also from a cosmic perspective, if you kind of zoom out into the cosmos, and I like that one very much. And especially now that they've discovered, that there are like trillions of galaxies. It's kind of amazing. It's hard to get one. It's impossible, in fact, to get one's head around. And then we're these tiny little beings on a little corner of one continent, of one planet, in one solar system, in one galaxy. Wow. That also gives a really beautiful context puts us into perspective, I think that's particularly helpful, I've found, if I'm caught up in a story, like a poor me or something like that, or it's so terrible, and then zoom out. It takes the heat out of it. So these are skillful means from which to meet the world and life itself, and for as the heart and mind, the citta, gets purified through our practice, these qualities get stronger. They get more accessible. They're more of a natural. They're either easier to find and to go to, or they're what we can find underneath the irritation, the fear, the anger, the desire. We start to find, like, oh yeah, when that comes down, there it is. Oh yeah, there it is. So until our citta, our heart mind is purified, I feel we need to work at it. Not everyone agrees with that. People have different approaches. But I think it's a good thing to cultivate. Why not? So I just really wanted to remind everyone of that, of those four qualities. And I think, well, just because we need to be reminded of our goodness and our potential, because it's here. It's here. And if we don't take care of that which is good and wholesome, if we don't notice it, sometimes people have a lot of goodness. I've known some amazing people, actually, very, very good people who don't see it. They can't see it in themselves. And so they relate to themselves as if they didn't have that goodness, but they have it, because everybody around them is experiencing it all the time, or a lot of the time. And that can be kind of sad in where it leads. So if we don't attend to the goodness in our heart, in our citta, we can overlook it and not nourish it, not take care of it. Or we can have a view of ourselves that is like, no, that's not me. I don't have those things. I'm a whatever kind of person, whatever story you might have. and no, I'm not that kind of person. But the thing is, these qualities aren't actually personal. They're universal qualities that all of us can live from if we remember, and if we're willing to do the work to clear away the obscurations to those qualities. And there's many things we can point the finger at as to why we should be doing something else, why we should be angry, why we should be upset, why we should be afraid, why greed is the way to go. There are many things in the world that we can say, oh, but we can use as excuses. And these 4 beautiful qualities are waiting for us to, or they're not waiting, they're here, but there's an opportunity for us to cultivate them. And even just in an ordinary day, even on a retreat actually, where we're not even taking in much of what's going on out there in the world, and we're all in noble silence, we're all keeping really high here, high levels of ethics and everything, still we're not, probably everyone wasn't dwelling in unlimited loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy and equanimity. Stuff comes up. So the days, just an ordinary day in life gives opportunity for us to see that and to listen to it and understand, where's this coming from, and is there another way? Is there another way that we can meet our experience that doesn't involve this suffering, the dukkha? So it takes some mindfulness, it takes some mindfulness and some intention and effort and willingness to undo certain patterns of holding. It takes a bit of risk, a bit of vulnerability, and it's 100% worth it. So for that today.